Hey everyone, I hope you guys are all doing well, staying peaceful, staying healthy. Um, Today's talk is going to be about libertarian anarchism, and we're just going to kind of talk about what it is, what this ideology is, and then the next lecture we'll talk about more specifics about the types of vision, alternative vision to the state that they advocate, right? So technically, right, libertarians and anarchists are technically two different ideologies, but they're so close together that we tend to roll them into one, right? So libertarian anarchism just basically believes, in a nutshell, that the state has too much power and that its power should be severely reduced, okay? So both libertarians and anarchists would believe that the state is overly violent, right, with its everyday citizens. It's overly corrupt. It engages in too much corruption. It's not honest. It's not transparent. And that the few services it does provide us, it only does it for its own self-serving ends, namely to keep us dependent upon the system. Now, where libertarians and anarchists disagree on is the level to which the power of the state should be reduced, right? Libertarians believe that we should have a minimal state. They still believe that we need a state, but that the state should have very minimal power. So libertarians would say, for example, most libertarians would say, we still need a state to provide for our common defense, right? Think like a military, right? And we also need a state maybe to help honor our contracts that we engage into in a free market capitalist system. But after that, that's about it. That's all the state really should be involved in. All of the other services we look to, like unemployment insurance or disability insurance or ambulance services or those types of things could all be provided by the common people themselves, in their communities. We don't really need a strong state or a strong federal government to provide all the things we traditionally look to it for. We could do that on our own in our smaller communities, right? Including, and this is a big emphasis, including our own self-defense, right? While most libertarians argue we still need a military, they argue we don't need total dependence on that military, really more from foreign invasion, right? But on our day-to-day protection, maybe there's less emphasis on police forces and more emphasis on the citizens themselves providing for their own common defense. Think the emphasis in America on the Second Amendment and gun rights. Now, libertarians on the whole, right, on the whole, tend to believe in a free market economy, that rather than government being heavily involved in the economy and regulating all facets of our industry and agriculture, we should be functioning on a free market with minimal intervention. Think like the right to start up small businesses, trading and bartering of goods, all without government intervention. That's what most libertarians believe in. So they don't necessarily, although some do, they don't necessarily advocate, quote, like a strong capitalist economy. In my understanding, capitalism has always been heavily dependent on a powerful state, but they advocate for free markets, that we should allow a market to freely operate, goods to be traded and consumed without significant state intervention. Obviously, libertarians also place a heavy emphasis on civil liberties, hence the term, right, liberty, right, civil liberties, that there's certain things that no state should have any right to interfere with. Free speech, self-defense, like gun rights. Privacy should always be honored. Under no circumstances should a state have the right to declare martial law or lock down its citizens. That's been obviously one of the major critiques that you're seeing with this whole COVID-19 is it's been a group of protesters who are saying the government is big, the individual state governments have been tyrannical in ordering the lockdown. You can argue a number of ways with all that, right? So that's in a nutshell, very broadly speaking, right? That is what we're talking about when we say libertarianism. Anarchism goes a step even further, right? Anarchism doesn't believe in the state at all. They don't believe we need a state involved in anything. They would argue that anything that essentially the state touches is going to create mass suffering for the majority of people. Now, where most anarchists, again, not all, most anarchists tend to group together the state and capitalism. And they say that capitalism and the state go hand in hand, that the capitalist economy has always been dependent upon a powerful state, and the powerful state has always supported the interests of the most powerful capitalists. Think, for powerful capitalists, think ExxonMobil, think Bill Gates, think Walmart, think Apple, think Verizon, right? All, according to an anarchist, the only reason those corporations are strong in the first place is because the state gave them incredible advantages in the marketplace, right? And intervened to protect those companies and those individuals, right? So an anarchist would actually say, you can't get rid of the state. I mean, you can't keep capitalism and then have the state. They'd say both need to go, that both capitalism and both the state are highly exploitive systems that are actually codependent on one another. And an anarchist would say, you know, all the same things as a libertarian, that the common people can provide for their own defense. The common people can create systems of social welfare that exist in their own communities without state intervention. The people can provide their own food. They can provide, their own water, clean water systems, and that the people can make most of their decisions in communities. Most anarchists tend to be very in favor of a system of government called direct democracy. Direct democracy, right? That the people themselves can congregate in small pools and make all the decisions in common, right? Through direct initiatives, direct votes, etc. So really, the big difference between libertarians and anarchists is their disagreement on capitalism. Libertarians tend to have a much more rosy view of the capitalist system, though they're very skeptical of the state, while anarchists believe that both the state and capitalism are highly corrupt and both need to go, right? All together. You tend to find, this is a little bit of a generalization, but you tend to find among people who are skeptical of the state, more, quote, and I hate these terms, but more, quote, left-leaning will tend to be drawn to anarchism, more right-leaning will tend to be drawn to libertarianism, right? That's just how it's kind of shaken out through history. But again, I think I've told you guys all semester, those terms really are ridiculous terms. I'm just using terms you guys will understand from politics, right? Left and right, that shouldn't define us as people one bit, right? That's generally what you'll find, right? What we'll do in our next lecture is we'll start looking at a common question that both libertarians and anarchists get. Okay, so if we removed the state tomorrow, or severely as anarchists would like, or severely minimize the power of the state to a very bare minimum, as libertarians would like, how would society function? What do libertarian anarchists advocate to be in place of the state? What would it even look like? We'll look at that next class, right? I hope you guys are doing well and be well.